The phone rang at exactly 9:00 a.m. I was just pouring my second cup of coffee weak, mostly milk, just as Dr. Bennett had prescribed. At 72, I'd grown used to quiet mornings. The world doesn't rush you anymore. It forgets you. But a call this early, that was never good news. Not at my age. Not when you live alone. I picked up the receiver with a strange grip too tight. "Hello," I said. "Mrs. Wyndham, Merle Wyndham." A man's voice. Crisp. Professional. But unfamiliar. "Yes," I replied, my spine tightening like an old tree root in cold soil. "My name is Hart Pallister. I'm Everett Wyndham's attorney." I didn't need him to say another word. I already knew. "I'm sorry to inform you that Mr. Wyndham passed away late last night. Heart attack. The doctors, they couldn't revive him." I sat down without realizing it. My body just gave out. I lowered myself into the kitchen chair like I was folding under invisible weight. Everett. Dead. We'd been divorced for 15 years. But the news hit like a fist to the ribs. 27 years of marriage. 2 children. And now. Silence. "I'm sorry," the lawyer said again. Voice softer now. "I understand the divorce. But I felt you should hear it from someone directly. Tabitha is arranging the funeral. It'll be this Friday. 2 o'clock. St. James Church. Thank you for letting me know," I said, calm as glass. That ability to hold myself together. It was a skill I had to learn. You don't survive life with Everett Wyndham without mastering the art of silence. When I hung up, I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I simply washed my coffee cup, wiped the counter, and sat by the window. Outside, my garden stood small and neat. A life I built with my own hands after the marriage ended. After I stopped spending money on his bar tabs and excuses. 70's not old anymore. But his heart? It always had a fuse attached. Doctors warned him. He didn't listen. That was Everett. And then the phone rang again. This time, it was my daughter's name on the screen. Tabitha. I almost didn't answer. I knew what was coming. But I did. "Mom," she said. Cold. Flat. Like the January wind slicing through Riverside. "Yes. I know," I answered. "The lawyer just called me." Pallister. Her voice twisted with annoyance. "Why would he call you? You've been divorced for... what? 100 years. 15. I corrected quietly. He was just being respectful. Tabitha snorted a sound so full of contempt. I could practically see her rolling her eyes like she used to when she was 16. And I dared set a curfew. "Listen to me carefully," she said, voice hard as steel. "I don't want you at the funeral. You don't belong there." I gripped the phone tighter. "Tabitha, I was his wife for 27 years. I gave birth to his kids. And then you left him when he needed you most," she snapped. "You never loved him. You were a cold, selfish woman who didn't give a damn about this family. You walked away. You left him." "Mom." Her voice had turned into a full-blown scream. "You pretended everything was fine. While he was falling apart, you buried yourself in your job, and what pretended you weren't part of the problem. The accusations weren't new. I'd heard them for over a decade. Everett could do no wrong in her eyes. Even when he drank away the money meant for her textbooks, even when he vanished for days." "Tabitha," I began. Steady. Measured. There are things you don't understand. No, I don't want to hear it, she shouted. If you show your face, I'll throw you out myself. Don't you dare ruin his funeral, click. The line went dead. I stared at the phone in my hand. She didn't want the truth. She never had. She wanted the fairy tale daddy the hero, mommy the villain. She never saw the other Everett daughter. The one who came home drunk and couldn't find the stairs. The one I feared. The one who almost... The phone rang a third time. Corey. My grandson. Tabitha's boy. 19. Sweet. Bright. And thank God nothing like his mother when it came to bitterness. Grandma. His voice was muffled, as if he were hiding. You heard yes. Darling, Mom says you're not allowed at the funeral, he said. Angry now. That's not fair. That's life. Isayad. Sometimes, people only see what they want to see. There was a pause. Then he said something I didn't expect. He talked about you? Grandpa. Even after everything, he still respected you. I closed my eyes. That caught me off guard. I think you should come, Corey said firmly. It's your right to. And just like that, the ache in my chest twisted. The past wasn't done with me, and neither was Everett. Not yet. After Corey hung up, I sat frozen by the window, hands curled around the warm mug like it could anchor me in time. Outside, the clouds shifted low over Riverside, like a damp, gray kilt. January had always been cruel. My mind wandered. Not to the funeral, but to before. To him. To Everett. He wasn't always the man who drank himself sick. Once, he'd been the kind of man who lit up a room. I met him at Jenny's Diner, where I waited tables during college breaks. He wore a trucker's jacket, had shoulders like a barn door, and flashed a smile that could win elections. Girls swooned. I just rolled my eyes. He liked that. He started bringing me souvenirs from every trip, keychains, matchbooks, even a snow globe from Tulsa. I should have known then. A man that charming always carried shadows. I never made it to college. Tabitha came 6 months after the wedding, fell in 2 years later, and then life simply took over. I worked at Tom's hardware store for nearly 4 decades, rising slowly from cashier to assistant manager. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid for braces, textbooks, rent, and eventually for Everett's bail, court fees, and all the nights he didn't come home. The drinking started after the accident. A truck had lost traction on an icy road. Everett swerved, tried to avoid a car. He survived with only a broken rib. But the other driver died. It wasn't Everett's fault. Everyone said so. Even the police. Didn't matter. The guilt swallowed him whole. At first, he only drank on weekends. Then during the week. Then at breakfast. He lost his job. Got another. Lost that one. 2. I took extra shifts. The bills didn't care whether Everett was sober or not. The kids started asking why Daddy was so tired. Why Mommy was never home. Tabitha always defended him. He's struggling. You don't get it. Her voice was sharp. Even then, if you really loved him, he wouldn't drink. She didn't see the empty vodka bottles I found in the dryer. The way his moods cracked like dry ice when he was 2 drinks in. But Phelan saw. He was quiet. Always had been plies. The type of boy who read by the heater and turned in assignments early. He didn't argue. He just watched. I thought I could shield them both. That if I worked hard enough, stayed calm enough, we could weather it. That's what wives do. Right. Until that night. 15 years ago. Right before everything shattered. Felon had just come home from college. A failed attempt. He was 23. He'd dropped out after 1 year. Depression. Anxiety. Maybe something else. I never pushed. I was folding laundry in the back room when I heard the sound like a table crashing into a wall. Then screaming. Then choking. When I ran into the living room, my husband had our son pinned against the wall. His hands around Felon's neck. His face was purple. His legs were kicking. I screamed. I begged. I pulled on Everett's arm. Nothing. He didn't even blink. That's when I saw the lamp. A heavy ceramic lamp on the side table. I don't remember picking it up. I just remember the sound, the crack, when it hit the back of Everett's head. He slumped down the wall, gasping, then unconscious. Felon collapsed onto the carpet, sobbing, his voice hoarse, his throat bruised and swelling. I thought, he almost killed our son. That was the end. When Everett came to, I gave him a choice, rehab, or I'd press charges and divorce him. No more begging, no more pretending. He chose rehab, but I was already gone. 6 months later, the divorce papers were signed. We agreed to keep quiet for the kids' sake. Everett didn't want to lose their love. And me, I was just tired. Better they hate me, I thought, than know the truth about what their father almost did. It worked. Tabitha never forgave me. She turned Everett into a tragic saint. And me, I became the villain. Cold. Uncaring. The one who walked away. She never knew the only reason she had a brother alive today was because I swung that lamp. The irony, Everett did change. He quit drinking. Opened a small auto repair shop. Showed up to birthdays. Sent polite Christmas cards. Played the role of Papa with perfect precision. We saw each other a few times at Tabitha's wedding. Felon's graduation. Corey's baptism. Always civil. Always distant. But now he was gone, and my daughter had banned me from his funeral. I walked to the dresser and pulled out a black dress, the one I wore to my mother's funeral. It still fit. I shook it out. Hung it by the closet door. Friday. 2 o'clock. St. James Church. Whether Tabitha liked it or not, I was going. I needed to say goodbye. Not just to Everett, but to the version of me who kept it all inside for far too long. Friday came wrapped in clouds. The sky over Riverside was gray and heavy, as if mourning alongside us. I parked my old Ford a block from St. James Church. Close enough to walk, far enough to stay invisible. I adjusted my black hat, the one with the thin veil. Bought it years ago for my mother in Law's funeral. I never imagined I'd be wearing it to Everett's. Each step toward the church felt heavier than the last, as if the sidewalk itself resisted me. Or maybe it was my conscience. Or maybe it was Tabitha's voice echoing in my head. You don't belong here. But I kept walking. The church doors were already open. Organ music floated out into the cold. I slipped in through the side entrance and took a seat in the very last pew, hidden behind a stone column. From here, I could see everything. Tabitha sat front and center, back straight as ever, a black dress too crisp for mourning. Her husband Neil beside her, arm loosely around her shoulders. Next to them were my grandchildren, Corey and Lane, both too young to carry this much grief. And then there was Felon. He sat alone, a few rows back, slouched, isolated, his head low. My boy had always been like that, silent, observing, carrying the weight no one else could see. The priest began. He spoke of Everett like a saint, a devoted father, a loyal friend, a man who turned his life around and found peace in service. I didn't flinch. I didn't frown. I simply listened. He wasn't wrong. Everett had changed. But that wasn't the whole story. That wasn't the man who left bruises in the carpet and silence in our children. Redemption. Yes, but not without a price. When the priest finished, Tabitha rose. Her heels clicked softly as she stepped to the pulpit. She cleared her throat, holding a small paper in shaking hands. "My father," she began, voice trembling just enough to be noticed, "was the strongest man I ever knew." She paused for effect. He wasn't perfect, but he loved deeply. He gave everything for his family, even when people didn't understand him, even when he wasn't appreciated. A quick glance at Felon. Even when we didn't appreciate him. Her voice cracked, but she pushed forward. "He taught me strength, to stand tall, to never give up." Polite sniffles echoed in the pews. A woman dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Neil reached for his wife's hand. I listened in silence. I had heard these words before. Not here. But at family dinners, at birthdays, in Tabitha's filtered lens of our past. She'd always preferred this version of Everett. The hero, the martyr, the man who bore suffering in silence. She never let herself see the man who drank through holidays, who threw dishes, who choked his own son. She never wanted that eulogy. After Tabitha returned to her seat, another man stood. Clem Hayes, old friend of Everett's, fellow trucker. One of the few who stayed after the crash. Clem wasn't polished. His suite didn't fit. And his voice was rough. Everett. He wasn't a saint, Clem said flatly. A few heads turned. He had his demons. He made mistakes. Big ones. But he fought them. He got sober. He built something. And he never stopped trying to be better. Tabitha stiffened. I could see it from the back. Her shoulders tensed. She hated this part. She hated when people acknowledged her father's flaws, because in her mind, flaws meant weakness. And weakness meant he wasn't the father she needed him to be. After the final hymn, the crowd moved to the cemetery. I hung back, waiting until most had gone. Then I followed slowly, silently keeping my distance beneath the trees. From afar, I watched as they lowered Everett's coffin into the ground. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. And just like that, the man who once held my hand through 1,000 truck stop diners was gone. My eyes drifted to Felon. He stood alone again. His posture sagged under a lifetime of emotional weight. Grief wasn't new to him. It had simply taken a new shape. Beside him, Lane reached out and gently held his hand. She glanced up at him with those wide, empathetic eyes, so much like mine at that age. And Corey. He spotted me. Just a glance. A nod. He didn't dare come closer. Not with Tabitha near. But then it happened. Her voice. Sharp. Piercing. Loud enough to turn heads. "You." I turned. Tabitha was walking toward me. Fast. Heels. Sinking into the soft earth. "How dare you come here?" she hissed. "I told you not to come. You have no right to be here." I stood my ground. My voice calm. I came to say goodbye. You gave up that right the day you walked out on him. She snapped, pointing at the grave. You abandoned this family. You destroyed him. People stared. I could feel every pair of eyes. Still, I didn't move. I was his wife for 27 years. I said softly. And I loved him. That doesn't vanish just because a marriage ends. Tabitha's face twisted into something between rage and disbelief. And then, before she could say another word, a voice broke through. Mrs. Wyndham, it was Hart Pallister. The lawyer. He stepped forward from the crowd, holding a sealed envelope in his hands. I was instructed to deliver this to you, he said. And to inform you, Mr. Wyndham requested your presence at the reading of his will. The crowd went silent. Even the birds above seemed to pause as Hart Pallister handed me the cream-colored envelope. His voice was low but steady. Mr. Wyndham requested you be present for the reading of his will. Today, 4 o'clock, at my office. Tabitha's eyes widened. What are you talking about? Pallister turned calmly to her. It was your father's express wish. That's impossible, she snapped. They've been divorced for 15 years. Why would he want her there? I said nothing. Pallister didn't flinch. Nevertheless, that's what he instructed. He updated his will 3 months ago. 3 months, Tabitha repeated, stunned. But he never said anything. It was his legal right to keep that private. The lawyer replied. I could feel Tabitha's anger swelling like a storm cloud. Whatever he left her, I'm going to contest it, she hissed, loud enough for anyone still lingering near the grave to hear. You won't get a penny of my father's estate. I didn't come for money, I said, my voice worn and low. I came to say goodbye. She turned her back and stalked off toward the cars, her heels punching into the earth like nails. I stayed still, envelope in hand. It felt heavier than it should have. Inside was his handwriting, Everett's, slanted, sharp, always rushing ahead of his thoughts. Before 4 o'clock. I was climbing the creaky wooden stairs to Pallister's office on Maple Avenue. A row of brass letters gleamed on frosted glass. G. Pallister, attorney at law. When I stepped into the waiting room, I froze. They were all there. Tabitha, her husband Neil, my son Felon, and the grandchildren Corey and Lane, all seated, all silent. Tabitha refused to look at me. Neil gave me a nod, just enough to acknowledge my presence. Corey offered a soft smile. Lane stood and gave me a quick hug before Tabitha could stop her. Thank you for coming, Pallister said, appearing from his office. We're ready. We followed him into a room lined with dark wood and law books. A long table stretched across the center, surrounded by chairs. I took the one farthest from Tabitha. Pallister sat at the head of the table and laid the envelope before him. I served as Mr. Wyndham's attorney for over 30 years. He began. And I personally drafted his final will 3 months ago. After he was diagnosed with heart disease, he glanced around. Before we begin with the will, Mr. Wyndham left a personal letter. It is to be read aloud, in full, in front of the entire family. Tabitha folded her arms. Why he wanted the truth known. Pallister replied. He opened the envelope, unfolded the pages, and began to read. If you're hearing this, then I'm gone. And if I'm gone, I can no longer hide behind pride, fear, or shame. It's time to tell you the truth. Tabitha, Felon, all these years, You believed your mother left me because I drank too much. Because she stopped loving me. That was the lie I let you believe. Because I couldn't face the truth. The truth is, I nearly killed your brother. One night. Drunk and angry. I lost control. I pinned Felon to the wall. I choked him. I don't even remember what started it. I only remember your mother screaming and something hitting the back of my head. That something was a lamp. And that lamp saved your brother's life. Afterward, Merle gave me a choice, rehab or jail. I chose rehab. But I never deserved forgiveness. She didn't leave because she stopped loving me. She left because she had to protect you. Because I was dangerous. And because I broke the man she once believed in. Tabitha, I know you hated your mother for leaving. But you should have hated me. She worked 2 jobs while I drank. She covered for me. Protected you. Protected me. She carried the whole family while I unraveled. And I let her take the blame. I let you turn her into the villain because I was too much of a coward to admit what I'd done. Felon. I don't know if you even remember that night. But I do. And it haunts me. This letter isn't an apology. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know who your mother truly was. And who I truly was. I hope the truth sets her free. Everett James Wyndham. The room was silent. No one breathed. Not even the air moved. I stared down at the table. Hands folded in my lap. I didn't look at anyone. Then, softly, I heard it. It's a lie, Tabitha said. Her voice shaky. That's not real. He didn't write that. Pallister raised an eyebrow. I witnessed it myself. He would never, she started. But stopped when Felon finally spoke. It's true, he said. Quiet. Almost a whisper. I remember. Tabitha turned to him. Wide-eyed. No, you're just saying that. She always turned you against him. I'm not saying it to hurt you, he said. I remember his hands around my neck. I remember thinking I might die. She pushed back from the table. Her chair screeched on the floor. I don't believe this, she muttered. No one stopped her as she walked out. The room felt colder after Tabitha left. No one spoke. Felon leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. Eyes unfocused. Corey stared at the floor, fidgeting with the antique watch on his wrist. Lane looked straight at me. Her eyes glossy but steady. Pallister cleared his throat. His voice calm but firm. Now that the personal letter has been read, we'll proceed with the formal will. He unfolded the legal document and adjusted his glasses. I, Everett James Wyndham, being of sound mind and memory, hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. His voice echoed with finality. First, I bequeath my home at 21 Maple Street, Riverside, including all its contents, to my son, Phelan Wyndham. Phelan blinked. Startled. Wait, what second? Pallister continued. I bequeath my auto repair business. Reliable wheels, including equipment, inventory, and ongoing operations, to my former wife, Merle Thatcher Wyndham. I inhaled sharply. I hadn't expected that. I understand she may not wish to operate the business personally. She may sell it or appoint a manager. It generates reliable income. And I wish her financial security in her later years. I swallowed. My throat was dry. My palms damp. Third, the lawyer said, I leave my total savings and investments, estimated at $250. Zero distributed as follows. $100. 000 to Merle Thatcher Wyndham, $50. 000 to my son, Phelan Wyndham, 50. 000, each to my grandchildren Corey Pierce and Lane Pierce, for education or personal development. Corey's jaw dropped. Lane blinked twice, unsure whether to smile or gasp. 4th. Pallister continued. I bequeath my antique tool collection to my grandson Corey Pierce, on the condition he not sell them, but keep them as a family heirloom. Corey looked up, eyes wide. 5th. I leave my 1967 Chevrolet Impala to my granddaughter Lane Pierce, effective upon her 18th birthday. Lane covered her mouth. That car had been Everett's pride and joy. No one touched it. Not even Tabitha. Pallister paused, then turned the final page. As for my daughter, Tabitha Pierce, the room held its breath. I leave her a symbolic sum of $1. Everyone froze. Pallister didn't flinch. He read on. This is not because I do not love her, but because I know she is financially stable, and more importantly, because I want her to reflect on the way she has judged her mother over the years. No one moved. No one breathed. That concludes the will. Pallister removed his glasses and folded the papers gently on the table. He sat still, stunned. I hadn't asked for this. I hadn't expected anything. And yet here it was proof, not just of his guilt, but of his recognition, his choice to repair the damage he'd caused. From the hallway came the sound of footsteps, fast, furious. The door burst open. Tabitha stood there, breathless, eyes wild. You read it. Yes. Pallister replied calmly. You can't be serious, she shouted. He wouldn't do this. He would never disinherit me. It's all in writing. He said. Unshaken. You're lying. She jabbed a finger toward me. She manipulated him. She poisoned him against me, Tabitha. Neil said gently from behind her. Stop. No, this isn't fair. Her voice cracked, slipping into something more fragile. He loved me. I was always there. She left him. She doesn't deserve anything. I rose slowly from my seat. Tabitha, I said softly. I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know. I don't believe you. She hissed. You always act like the victim. But you destroyed this family. And now you're reaping the rewards. I buried that man just hours ago. I said, and you think I care about rewards. You just couldn't stand it. Could you? She snapped. You couldn't stand that I loved him more than I loved you. Tabitha. Phelan said quietly. Stop. She turned to him, betrayal in her eyes. Don't take her side. I'm not taking sides. He said. I'm telling the truth. We all need to hear it. She's not family. Tabitha spat. Corey stood. Yes. She is. Lane rose beside him. And we want her in our lives. Tabitha looked stunned, wounded, like the foundation beneath her had cracked. She shook her head slowly. I'm going to fight this. I'll hire lawyers. I'll contest the will. You're free to do that, Pallister said, voice dry. But it's legally sound. And public court means everything. Every detail becomes part of the record. Tabitha's jaw tightened. Then she turned to me, eyes blazing. You think you've won? No, I said. I think he finally told the truth. Her expression hardened. I'll see you in court. And with that, she walked out again, slamming the door behind her. Felon called the next morning. She's agreed to talk, he said, voice cautious. She's still angry, but she's willing to hear you out. Come to Dad's house. Tonight? He hesitated. The wounds were fresh. The words in that lawyer's office were still echoing. But I said yes. He arrived just after dusk. The house looked the same. And yet not. Everett had repainted it. The hedges were trimmed. The porch lights glowed soft yellow against the winter dark. Felon opened the door before I knocked. She's in the living room, he said. Try to be patient. Inside, everything felt strange. New furniture, new paint. But the air still held something old. A heaviness, a history. Tabitha sat by the window, arms crossed, spine stiff. A cup of untouched tea rested beside her. She didn't turn when I entered. Lane sat on the floor, back against the couch. Corey lingered in the kitchen doorway. Both looked like they were holding their breath. Hello, Tabitha, I said. She didn't respond. I sat across from her. Between us, the coffee table felt like a battlefield. I'm not here to fight, I said gently. Just to tell the truth. The whole truth. You already did. She muttered, still not looking at me. In front of everyone. You humiliated him. I didn't humiliate him. I let him speak. Those were his words. No, they were yours. She snapped. He was dying. You probably fed them to him. Manipulated him like you always do. I didn't flinch. You think I wanted any of that? You took everything, she shouted. The business. The house. The money. And now you want me to forgive you too. I never asked for forgiveness. I said, I just wanted you to know the truth. The truth, she scoffed. You left him when he was at his worst. I left him, I said slowly, because I found him with his hands around your brother's throat. That silenced the room. Corey looked stunned. Lane's eyes widened. Tabitha still stared forward. You weren't there, I continued. You were living with Neil. You didn't see Felon turning blue. You didn't hear the sound when I hit your father with that lamp. But it happened. You could have told me, she said through gritted teeth. And what would you have done? I asked. Believed me, or called me a liar. Like you're doing now. She didn't answer. I kept quiet to protect you, I said. To protect your memory of your father. Because you loved him so much? It would have broken you. You had no right. She whispered. No, I said. Maybe I didn't. I leaned forward, my voice softening, but I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to hold this family together the only way I knew how. Tabitha's hands trembled in her lap. You made me hate you, she said, her voice cracking. For years, I hated you. I thought you were cold, distant, selfish. I know, I said quietly. And all that time, she whispered, you were protecting me. Finally, she turned to face me. I don't know how to process that. You don't have to, I replied. Not today. Not tomorrow. Maybe not ever. But it's yours to carry now. Not a lie. Not a myth. The truth. She stood up suddenly, pacing. I built my whole life around this story. Dad was the good one. You were the one who walked out. I blamed you for everything. I know. And now I don't even know who he was anymore. I stood. Too. Slowly. He was both. Tabitha. He was the man who held you on his shoulders and told bedtime stories. And he was the man who nearly killed his son in a drunken rage. Both those things can be true. Tears welled in her eyes. She shook her head. I don't want to hate him. You don't have to. I said. You just have to see him clearly. Tabitha turned to the window, pressing a hand against the cold glass. Her breath fogged the pain. Do you still love him? She asked quietly. I swallowed. Yes. After a long pause, she said, So do I. We stood there in silence, not hugging, not reconciling, just standing in the same truth. Behind us, Lane whispered. Mom. Tabitha turned around, wiping her face quickly. I'm okay, she said. I just need time. I nodded. That's all I ever wanted you to have. Winter came hard in Riverside that year. Snow fell thick and silent, blanketing the town in white, as if trying to cover up everything that had been said, everything that had been broken. But truth doesn't melt with the seasons. It lingers, even under the ice. I didn't sell the auto shop. Instead, I hired Dexter Everett's longtime assistant to run it. He was loyal, sharp, and honest. The business stayed afloat, maybe even grew. I stayed out of the garage and let the past live there. Neatly stacked beside wrenches and repair orders. The money Everett left me, I used it wisely. Helped Felon enroll in college again. He wanted to become a school counselor. After years behind the wheel of a school bus, he said he finally understood what kids carried with them and what they needed. Corey stayed close, visiting every week. He started restoring Everett's antique tools, labeling each one with a handwritten tag. For the family museum, he joked. Lane came too. We worked in the garden together, even through the frost. She talked about college, history, the stories people bury, and Tabitha. She disappeared for a while. No calls, no letters, only silence. Felon said she'd taken a leave from work, that she stayed in bed some days, staring at old photo albums. I didn't push. You can't force healing, especially not the kind that burns through everything you thought was true. One night in February, I was invited to dinner at Felon's house. Audrey, his new girlfriend, cooked lasagna. Corey and Lane brought dessert. We laughed. We passed plates. We breathed like a family again. And then Tabitha walked in, unannounced, pale, distant. But she came. She sat across from me, arms folded tight. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. Her presence was a whisper, not a scream. But it meant something. That night, before I left, she approached me in the hallway. Alone. I checked the documents, she said. The will, the medical files, the letter. It's all real. I know. She paused. I don't know if I'll ever forgive you. I'm not asking you to. I said. But I want to understand. That was enough. A beginning. Later that evening, I sat alone in my living room. Outside, the snow glowed under streetlights. I reached into the drawer and pulled out the small velvet box Felon had given me weeks ago, Everett's final gift. Inside was the ring, our wedding ring. I had returned it to him the day I left. And now, after everything, he had returned it to me. There was a note, written in his hurried slant. Merle, this ring was never about the promises we broke. It was about the promise you kept to protect our children. Even from me. I never deserved you. But I want you to know, I finally saw you. And I'm sorry it took dying to say it out loud. I closed the box and placed it gently under my pillow. Not to hold on to him, but to remember myself, the woman who stayed silent for too long, the woman who left not out of weakness but out of strength, the woman who still loved, even through ruin. Outside, snow kept falling, covering everything in white. But beneath it all, was something that wouldn't stay buried. Truth. And maybe, just maybe, a new beginning.